and I'm joined by Paul.
Good evening, mate.
And by Laurie.
Hey, mate.
That was all fun, wasn't it? Should we just go straight into moments of the week before lamenting that result on Saturday, given that we'll have plenty of time to do that? Who wants to start? I'm going to see whether either of you have actually got one.
I've got one.
Go on then, Paul. Why don't you kick us off?
I'm going to praise Bolton, basically.
Okay.
I'm going to praise the team that consisted of 4 17-year-olds, 2 18-year-olds and a 19-year-old, and the mega-aged James Weir, who was 24. And basically they had a team which average age was closer to my 4-year-old daughter than it was to my 39-year-old self. So, that's where they were at. They're close to being preschool than they are to being 40. So they deserve everything they get. They got some refereeing decisions, but they didn't cave in. They didn't tire. They didn't give up. They tried their hardest. And if you're a Bolton fan, if we were Bolton fans doing this, we'd be absolutely raving about how brilliant they were and how they got a point at home in weird circumstances. So full credit to all those players.
Do you remember the atmosphere of this podcast after we beat Sunderland at the Stadium of Light last season? I imagine that whatever the Bolton equivalent of this is that it's very similar to that.
The JJ Okocha show.
I guess so. Well, I mean, but I'm not sure that's the counterpoint to Neil Lamptey. He actually was tremendously successful and good, wasn't he? But that is probably what they would call themselves. Paul, anything to add to that before I throw over to Laurie? Because I agree. I thought there was a couple of standout players. I thought their left back was very, very good, and I thought their keeper, which I'm sure Laurie you'll come on to mention, but I thought their keeper had a run of catches where you just thought, you're meant to spill a couple of these.
I mean, as I said, there were a couple of their players were a bit. They did some late tackles. A couple of their players seemed tough. They were going in with, but they were 17-year-old kids playing in front of that atmosphere, in front of that crowd, where there was, from Bolton, obviously there was no negativity. Everything they did was positive. Everything they did was rewarded richly. And if that had been us, that have been exactly the same situation. I think they could have crumbled, and at no point, even in the 80th minute when you thought they're now going to tire, they had a counter-attack and could have scored. I mean, they earned the 0-0 draw. They earned the little bit of luck or the decisions the ref gave them in their favour. They earned that by the fact that they didn't completely capitulate. And as I said, I think what we'll discuss later, I think there's always two teams in any game, but they deserve a lot of credit. As much as Cov frustrated me, I think you've got to give the fact that Bolton, they utilised the way that we played and they didn't take any risks and they deserve that draw.
Worth as well saying that the Bolton fans had a massive influence on it as well, because as you say, I just thought they were really spectacularly positive throughout. I just thought that I felt like they had a big impact on what was going on the pitch. But yeah. Right, Laurie, moment of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that's been said there. I actually called it toxic positivity, was what I experienced in that stadium, it was horrible. I liked it at the start, but it got quickly tiring when we weren't winning.
You made a really good point, actually, during the game, Laurie, which was that in the first 10 minutes of the game, all of the Cov fans are singing kind of supportive messages, kind of let down by the EFL and all of that. In about 70 minutes, you were like, we seem to have been less in solidarity with Bolton more than this game has been 0-0. And those songs are noticeable by their absence. Now we're all very frustrated.
Yeah, no one wants to seek solidarity when we should be with their children. My moment of the week was Maxime Biamou coming onto the pitch, for sure. Haven't seen him play since he went down in... God, what game was it? Was it
Blackpool away?
Blackpool
and I'd claim
away.
you still haven't seen him play.
Yeah.
You bad man.
So he got a great reception when he came on, and he came on at the same time as Gooden as well. So everyone was much more excited to see Maxime play. than they were to see Gooden play, which I thought was great. Not that I have anything against him. So yeah, obviously what came after that wasn't ideal, but it was amazing when he came onto the pitch, and I'm just so delighted he's back and seemingly okay.
Yeah, seemingly okay again without wanting to become a hypocrite is certainly, and he scored again today, didn't he, for the under-23s? Yeah, I'd like to see a lot more of him. I hope that he gets on the pitch. I'd be interested to see how much we will see of him, given that I think that Gooden or whatever it is that's pronounced is likely to become first choice pretty soon. I want to go for 2 moments of the week this week. In second place, that the universe was robbed of another absolutely quintessential Bakayoko goal this weekend, in how that was as Bakayoko a goal as there ever should have been. That Hiwula, who really probably could have or should have scored himself just by hitting it forward, instead hit it sidewards, and then it just hit him on the knee and rolled in. But that he immediately wheeled away in celebration as if it was another bicycle kick or something. You just think this is you in a nutshell, isn't it? Basically. But yeah, I was furious, of course, that was taken away from us. Moment of the week for me was: have you both seen the Robbins interview after the game?
I've read one of them.
So. Really, I need Neil here for this, but I'm sure we can get through it without him. Unbelievable Brent behaviour from Robbins. The very start of the interview is the guy that's interviewing him says to him, "So, Mark, a disappointing result," and Robbins just straight away goes, "Was it? Was it?" And the guy is immediately on the back foot, and he's just like, "Well, you know, it's a game that you'd have hoped to have won, and you didn't win it." And he went, "Yeah, every game's a hope that I'll win, and we don't, and then what's it? And yeah, it's always disappointing if you don't win." He's just like, "Oh wow, you're in a good mood then, Mark."
So defensive.
It's just so unnecessarily kind of belligerent, and that was a disappointing result. Was it really? Actually, I didn't think it was. I thought we were. Then you just like, it is. Of course it is.
Some of the complaints will be false.
You just thought, I get the thing that he was trying to say was that the players put in a lot of effort and blah 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 blah, but not beating a team with an average age of 19, where there was some discrepancy, where there was some worry that the game wouldn't even go ahead or whatever. You just like, that is disappointing. You can't, even as stubborn and belligerent as you are, Mark, is you can't be like, "Oh, I didn't think it was." You're like it, and then then Paul, I think it was off there that you said it, but he says that if people look at the Rothmans yearbook in 5 years' time, people might think that it was a good result to come to Bolton and get a draw, but they won't know all of the facts then, will they? That's not how that's called revisionist history. That's not actual history.
This is incredulous, Joey. I can't believe that you're even mildly disappointed by the fact we didn't beat. Because you've got to put things in context. It was the second game of the season. Have you taken that into context?
No,
I don't think you have you?
I don't care.
I don't think you have. I don't think you've taken quite a few things into context. The fact that we had 2 injuries. I think the fact that Alan wasn't playing, who we all know, having seen him 50 times, is the greatest midfielder that's ever played for Coventry, and that other winger, the one that no one's seen, he wasn't playing. We didn't have a strike force which contained sort of Bakayoko, who cost £500,000. We didn't bring in a £500,000 sub. You know, all these things have got to be taken into context while we're playing against a bunch of kids. So having sort of read Twitter over the weekend, I think we should all be pleased, like Robbins was, that we kept a clean sheet against the Bolton team, which had a team where no one's ever played in the league before or scored a league goal. I think we should be amazed that the performance was as good as it was. And I think we should just accept the fact that we were morally the better team. And I don't think we should complain about anything.
Question on Twitter to start us off from friend of the show, Rob Stevens. Hi, Rob. It's aimed specifically at you, Paul. What are you going to talk about to make it worth listening to? Because I get the feel it's going to be at least 50% you moaning about that Bolton match. I'm certainly hoping, and if you can pick it up from this point, that it's going to be at least 80% you moaning about this Bolton match. Is that can we bank on that? Can we take that to the bank?
Well, I like to think that you two will add at least 20% each. I mean, let's be honest.
Let's see how we get on.
Let's see how we get on. There are a couple of things which I think we need to. My first one, as I said off air, I think the second game of the season thing, the reason that gets on my nerves is that was Mark Robbins' 123rd game in charge of Coventry. Yeah, it was the second game of this season, but I thought the whole point of keeping managers on from season after season is you don't have to restart at every season. You sort of build on the season past. Last season we were what, 8th, 9th? We should be building on that. Now, one of the things that completely changed from last season is we're trying a new formation. Now, I don't use that as an excuse. That's not an excuse for the fact that we didn't beat Bolton, because we didn't need to change formation. We've decided to do that we've got to get over that. You've got to get over that quickly. I'm sure that wasn't an excuse when we beat Southend last week. So the players have played that system all pre-season. We got in the players very early. None of those players were new in terms of they'd been here about a month. So the whole second game thing.
I also don't think it's a radical departure from what we were doing. So it's not a switch to 3 at the back or whatever. It's basically one of your forward players drops a bit deeper, isn't it? That's largely the kind of... and that your 2 wide players possibly push even further up.
Well, I mean, the main thing is it's basically 4-1-2 massive gap 3, and that's the issue is. And Liam Kelly's fine as an anchor man, and we've discussed this last season. I don't like having the inverted triangle with an anchor man, but playing an anchor man, so you're playing 5 defensive players against Bolton, who the average age is 19, so you're automatically sort of playing quite a defensive style against a team of kids, and then we passed it around at the back, and I've seen those people. We had lots of possession. Yet Bolton weren't going to press us high up the pitch. They're not under Jurgen Klopp. They were there basically to keep a 0-0. So when they're seeing McFadden with the ball at his feet, they're not thinking we need to close him down and make his life difficult. They're standing there going, if you're stood there with the ball, I don't have to move.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're probably looking at it and hoping, I really hope you stay there.
Yeah. You have the ball for as long as you want, because it makes my defensive spell really easy. And the first half, the main thing coming out of the first half was just like the lack of tempo. The fact that we allowed... You would have thought, Bolton, bunch of kids, hit them hard, hit them early. Turn those centre-backs round, hit the bylines, really sort of play at a high tempo, because they're 17-year-old kids. They've never played professional game of football before. They're going to be blowing out their ass after 60 minutes. So hit them hard, hit them early, and make them think. Tire them out, both mentally and physically. And you watch it and you're like, this is tedious. This isn't particularly that much fun. And Bolton aren't particularly being stretched by this. And then we scored the first goal. It was, that's a great goal. Shipley's offside. Now, I know everyone's showing the little videos but my mate, who's not a Bolton fan, but was in the Bolton end, I said to him we were talking about it, and he goes, no, he was offside. He said, he's checked his run, and he sort of another Bolton fan said, on the video, because it's so late, it looks like he's in line, but he's gone offside, he's checked his run, but unfortunately, he's offside. From as I said, someone who's got no reason to lie, and it's like, well, it took him a bloody long time to come to the answer.
Is that fair? Somebody's got no reason to lie. Of course you've got. But if he's a Bolton fan, then he's...
No, he's not a Bolton fan.
Oh, I see. He was just in the Bolton end.
He's a neutral. He's a dad of one of Mary's friends. So we went because Bolton Cov, and he went with some Bolton fans. He was in the Bolton end, but he's got no reason. If it had been on side, he'd have just gone, yeah, you were unlucky.
But why doesn't that flag go up straight away? That's what I don't understand about that decision, because offsides, they're an instant decision. Like, the flag can't have been up, otherwise he wouldn't have disallowed it straight away.
I don't know.
So I think it's because, and when you watch the highlights, you can see it. I think it's not for the first necessarily, but I think it's the ref that's giving them. Which I don't think they're meant to do.
The ref's called the offside.
Yeah, and even worse is with the last two, it looked like the conversation was 3-way between the ref, the linesman, and their keeper, who seemed to have an awful lot to say about it that was being listened to. But I think you're right, Paul, is that even Robbins in his post-game was saying that he was saying the first one was contentious, which means that it was offside. He said, "Oh, it's a big toe." Well, if it's a big toe, you saw in the Man City game earlier. It doesn't matter how fine the margin are. If you're offside, you're offside, aren't you? You can argue with the whys and wherefores of that, but I couldn't tell it from the thingy. But you get the impression that he probably was at that point. The second, however.
Well, I mean, we'll get on to that. I mean, and then other than that, in the first half, we had Shipley had a shot from just inside the area that keeper made a good save for him.
Yeah.
Other than that, they had a good chance. And that was about it, first half. Unless you two can remember anything, I can't. It wasn't particularly, I mean, to be honest, it was pretty boring.
It was, yeah, but I think we had 24 shots in total, and actually there were a number in the first half that should have gone on target if you were going to be brutal about it. And I think where that becomes pertinent is because it's what you were saying before about, yes, it's the second game of this season, but it did feel a lot like a lot of the other games last season, didn't it? Kind of reasonably neat build-up play that was let down by a lack of any clinical edge up front.
Yeah, and the big... Sorry, go on.
Kelly had a really good one where he played that nice 1-2 on the edge of the box.
Yeah.
And then he was in and he just absolutely wet-fished it to the keeper. Bakayoko was through as well after playing with Gibello. So, yeah, there were a couple, but I never felt we were going to score them, put it that way.
But we've got a bit of an odd team at the moment because we don't really have any creative player on the pitch. We have Gibello, who is a winger. He wants to get out on the wing and he wants to cross them in, and that's fine. He's playing up front in a 4-4-3, as we saw with Kyle Reid. Playing a winger in one of those attacking three, sometimes they don't know whether or not what they're trying to do, because they don't know if they should be hitting the byline or if they're trying to tuck in. And he put in a couple of really good crosses. He put in a lot of woeful crosses as well, but he was an outlet. But him and Dabo on the right back, there's no relationship. And again, that's fine. It's early days. I thought Dabo was poor. I mean, he just looked poor. He didn't have a good game at all. Again, considering the opponents, he should have had a lot more license to get to the byline, to be getting forward, and he just didn't take that opportunity. He sat quite deep. He was quite happy to play right back, and you were like, but against this team, you might need to be offering more than that. And then you had Wooler on the left, who had a very Hawula game. You had Bakayoko, who's really isolated in that sort of forward role. And it's, whether or not he's good enough to or can play that role. And then you had Westbrook and Shipley, and they were a long way from Kelly, but they were always facing their own goal. So the ball went to them. They then had to turn round. They weren't on the sort of, side on, receiving the ball, sort of looking to then sort of break things. It was a case of they were stood looking to hold the ball up with their back to goal. And you were like, you need to be turning this round. You need to be probing more. And Westbrook was poor for me, really poor. He put in the one good pass for the debatable Bakayoko penalty. Other than that, I really failed to see what he brought to the team at all.
Laurie, Westbrook, thoughts?
Yeah, I was quite disappointed with what he brought, to be honest, because I'd actually been quite excited by him towards the end of last season, but there was a lot of... It kind of reminded me a little bit of what Liam Kelly used to be like about a year ago, when he was just much more pedestrian and didn't really want to stick his neck out. And then when you end up playing things safe so often, then when you start playing it safe and getting it wrong, it's even worse than if you're trying new things and getting it wrong. So yeah, I wasn't particularly enthused with his performance, but that's the first time I've seen him since the end of last season.
It's probably not portentous, but I was a little bit worried about how little he was able to stamp any authority on a midfield that was full of children. Whereas I thought Liam Kelly had a good game still, but Westbrook played worse than most of the Bolton players who'd never played before. And I kind of think that's not a good sign, is it? It might mean nothing ultimately, but it's not great either, is it?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, go on, Paul.
Sorry, he's an academy player. He's one of those players he's neat in possession. He makes good passes, but he's not dynamic. The question is can he bring that dynamism to the team, especially if he's going to play that role? Which I know the theory is that he won't be there long because Alan will come in for him. But I think if he's going to play that role, he needs to show more. He needs to speed the ball up. So first half 0-0, probably a fair result based on the fact that other than the goal, which was, I think sort of general consensus probably was offside. I mean, it's.
So the first one,
even if it's 50-50,
we can say it could be offside, I guess, would probably be the most accurate way of saying it. I think there was outrage at first because people were saying it absolutely wasn't. I think now most accept that it could have been, but we haven't got Richard Keys to have got us another angle on this one.
But the thing is, it's like, cut to the very end of all the decisions, even if they were against us, they were marginal decisions. I mean, even the Bakayoko, which is the next one, is the Bakayoko one, which I think most people tend to agree. But I think if you watch it, does he push the guy to the ground in front of him when the ball comes? I don't know.
He's Bakayoko. That's not.
So
that's not the debate.
The question is it a foul anyway? I don't know. I'm not defending the referee or the linesman on this. That for me is the one that I think probably should have been given as a goal. But I've seen the video and it's like, if I was a Bolton fan, would I say he's pushed him in the back? I don't know.
That's fine, but it wasn't given for. It wasn't given. No, I mean, it
was given for offside. It was given off for offside.
Yeah, and there was it, and it was. It's not hard to see that was onside. It couldn't. I really struggle to understand how that could have been interpreted as being offside.
It has to be a foul because I'm watching it right now, and I've watched it like 10 times in a row, and I never even considered the concept of it maybe being a foul that Bakayoko's committed on the guy, but I mean, it definitely looks like a foul, doesn't it?
But it's not given for that, is it?
It's not given for that. No, Bakayoko is technically on his way to the floor as well, so it's kind of a 50-50, but he's just happened to have scored while doing it.
I think that's the thing, and I think that's my point on all these things. And the last one, the Biami one, we're not even going to discuss because Robin said that was offside.
Yeah.
So we're all agreed that the Biami one's offside.
Great pass, though.
Yeah, it was a great pass.
And a really good finish, actually, as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like all these... The ultimate thing is, the 2 goals or the 1 goal is still, we're sort of 50-50 on. Maybe 55-45 because we're Cov fans. We're talking about contention.
The Bakayoko
one.
No, should have been given.
Okay, fair enough. But we're still talking about... You could argue, as Joey just said, Laurie just said, about the foul. I'm not... But my point is... Against that Bolton team, we should have scored goals that there's no question about.
Yeah.
We're not even discussing. It shouldn't even... These things could have happened and we still should have won 3-0. That's the issue. That's my issue is you take the referee out of that game and say the referee got all those decisions right, we still should have won that game and won it comfortably.
The refereeing is a complete red herring about this, isn't it? This kind of isn't there is a separate discussion point about should those things have stood or not stood, but it doesn't have any influence on whether we should have won that game or not. Even if you just look at the chances that we did terribly with, I mean, we're saying here, I know that we're very much through the eye of through the looking glass, whatever it is here, you should also say that the Bakayoko goal should have never have not stood, because why on earth didn't Hiwula score?
I mean, that's it. And you go on, and then we're not even getting to the worst decision of the match, have we? The worst decision of the match, Biamu left wing.
Well, yeah, let's have... go on.
Hasn't played for nearly a year. I was there last August when he did it at Blackpool. He's never shown any indication that he's a winger. He's not left-footed. And I know lots of people have retrofitted the substitution to make sense of it, gone, well, we were going to hit long balls to the left wing, weren't we? Why? Robbins has never done that since he's been here. We've never played the Jamie Scowcroft pass. And we didn't even attempt it on Saturday. We didn't play the ball in the air to him once when he was on the left wing. Played the ball into his feet quite a lot.
An awful lot.
God knows why. His first touch was fucking horrendous. And I like Biamu, but you watched him and you were like, holy crumbs, you're terrible. And you felt sorry for him because you don't want to see anyone have that sort of touch. But playing him out on the left wing in that game was just farcical to him, farcical to the system. It's like 4-3-3 isn't working. It's not working. It hasn't worked. Why are you bringing Biamu on, who's a number 9, classic number 9, and playing him out there? And so you just had this ridiculous situation where just the whole dynamic didn't work. We continued to play with an anchor man, so we're still playing with 5 defensive players as the game's getting on against a Bolton team who they should be getting tired. They should be wary. They should be. I said, if that had been Neil Warnock or Martin O'Neill or any of those guys, they'd have, after 60 minutes, been Biamu up front, and they'd have just hit Biamu for 30 minutes, and they'd have made the Bolton defenders face their own goal. They'd have made them deal with like header after header, like permanently concentrate. You've got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision. Okay, you've made a decision, you cleared it. Now you've got to make another one. You've got to make another one. You've got to make one. If you make a fuck up because you're marking Biamu, then that guy's got to cover you, but also cover his. But if you've got one up front, if your defender makes a fuck up, the teammate clears it. We didn't make them make decisions. We played in front of them for an entire 90 minutes. And you looked at Bolton, and Bolton like, I can deal with this. We can deal with this. This isn't an issue. You keep playing there. And then we had 24 shots. How many diving saves did the keeper make?
Well, none. And also, how many shots did we have that we hit cleanly enough that didn't require a lot of the shots that we had bounced numerous times, including that one Biamu free kick. Yeah, is that there's Laurie. I don't know if you want to elaborate from there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in seriously dire need of someone who can take set pieces now, because much as Chaplin was no one's favourite player, he did know how to ping a free kick into the top corner. Now we've got no one, and somehow Biamu has made enough jokes in the training room over the last 12 months to be taking direct free kicks, and it was a sad effort. Bounced on the penalty spot and then was caught by the keeper, who was like smoking cigars by that point. Not that he was even old enough to smoke them. And who took the next one? I think
Shipley
had a go at one.
And again, it was. I
At
imagine
least
that he was
made it without bouncing.
Yeah, but it still wasn't good at all, was it?
No, it was.
Westbrook had one in the first half, didn't he? That was so slow that literally we had time to sort of have a game of Scrabble before him hitting it and the keeper just sort of meandering over.
But I didn't remember from the game itself the chance that Godden taps really lightly at the keeper that on the face, and maybe the highlight makes it look.
Well, the one where he took it on the full.
Yeah,
kind of actually a cute angle, yeah.
And no. Actually, he was pretty much on the penalty spot, and kind of just he never makes the connection with it, and it just felt like there was a lot of kind of. And this is perhaps where we're being unfair, and that it was ring rustiness, and that they kind of, a bit more season under their belts. But like Paul says, it just feels very familiar from last season, doesn't it? What's weird is that we haven't got any of the players from last season.
I think the thing is, it's ring rustiness, but Man City's first game of the season have been 5-0. I'm not comparing us to Man City. I'm just saying that. Yeah, okay, but you've got the whole point of having pre-season is you hit the ground sort of running, and you couldn't have asked for a better opportunity to basically play the under-23s of a team who didn't even know if the game was going to go ahead. It's like if we played under 23s week in week out, you'd expect to win. And so I think Robin said a lot. Oh, our team isn't much older, and it's like, no, our team are fully fledged professional footballers. All bar probably Westbrook have played like at least 50 games. That was a fully professional team. Yeah. McFadden's 32, Kelly's like 28, 29. I said Bakayoko cost $500,000. Hawula's scored about 40 goals in this division. Let's not pretend that we're not. We should be winning that game.
There's a big difference between age and experience, isn't there?
Not making an excuse for how he played, but can we just dwell a second for quite how bizarre a situation that game was? It wasn't even like playing an FA Cup game against a team like 2 divisions below you, because they didn't come here to kick us. They weren't big enough to kick us. We were playing a team that was scared of us, but also had no possible way of hurting us, because they weren't better footballers than us. It wasn't like they were small and nippy, nor were they massive and scary. So this is almost me putting the boot in a bit more. The fact he didn't beat them is just unbelievable, because they had apps, apart from Kurt Zuma's brother, who is unbelievably 21, they just had no one who was even remotely intimidating going forward. And I don't think they even played a striker, which is just unbelievable. And they made one substitute in the whole game. How were they not tired? I don't understand.
Well, I think they were terribly tired, weren't they? Because if you look at in the second half, there were two shots in inverted commas that they made that were ludicrous, weren't they? They were kind of from the halfway line almost, and you could just...
Oh, that guy shot, yeah, he tried to lob the keeper.
But the keeper was on his line, so it would have had to have been one hell of a chip.
Well, sorry, going back to Laurie's point, I think Laurie makes the most pertinent point, really. We didn't play the situation at all.
That's the problem,
Yeah, that game could have been... that instead of going, we're playing Bolton's under 17s, we went, we're playing Man United. We went into exactly the same mindset as we'd have played any other game, and there was no need to. That game was there to be won, and at no point, and this is my issue with Robins, as well as he's done at Cardiff, my issue with Robins is there is a point you get into that game, and it's about 60 minutes like, let's win this. They're not going to score on the counter. They might score on the counter. There's always that opportunity. You might get caught on the counter. But if we hammer them for 30 minutes... That's the same in any
game, isn't it?
Yeah, as I said, like, you've always got that thing at the back of your head that they could counter. But you're like, we're playing a bunch of kids. There's half an hour to go. There's no real worry about us losing. Let's go and win this. And at no point did you ever think, actually, we're going out, all out, to win this.
Well, rain sheeting down. You just think, ask questions of them. Turn them round against their own goal, have them, slice clearances. I know it's awful because you're talking about kids here, but this is kind of all is fair in love and war. But give them opportunities to make them feel embarrassed and drop their heads.
They would have been happy with the 2-0 defeat. That's the tragedy.
Yeah.
Even a 0-0 was beyond the wildest realms of possibility for them.
They were 10-1 to win, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the other two things we really have to discuss is, obviously, there was the Bakayoko. It looked to me like he was dragged down. It looked to me like it was a penalty. And there was the McFadden one where he had his shirt pulled all over.
So the Bakayoko one is worse than that. Two players go down, their player and Bakayoko, and it's that he's held down. So you could argue that the kind of the coming together in the first place, I don't think that was a penalty, but he's very clearly stopped from getting up. I don't know how much more of a penalty. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how much clearer that could have been. But the answer is that McFadden's was probably clearer, because it was just very obviously a foul that didn't seem to take place close enough to the ball to not, to even think, or maybe he got the ball. It just was, he's just dragged down. And I know that we were in a very fortunate vantage point because we were right in front of it. But the referee was able to spot an offside from his worst point, and I just couldn't really understand. I couldn't understand how, even on the balance of things, I always hark back to this, and I think I mentioned it to Laurie on Saturday, but I remember against Watford years and years ago, probably the best part of 10 years ago at Vicarage Road, we got a penalty in the last minute for persistent fouling, and that you almost think that once you've already given 2 goals as being offside, and you surely, if you were the ref, couldn't have been absolutely certain in your own head, then you've already not given another penalty. You'd think that other penalty, you'd be like, even if I'm in two minds about this, I'm probably going to have to give it the other way, just because I might have probably got one of those others wrong. It's odd to me that you could just keep going one way.
But in his head, that is the perfect referee, isn't it? Because you must treat every decision in isolation from every other decision, like, as you should, because you shouldn't kind of making decisions based on the context of what's happened before.
But I actually think that's not fair. I think that if you were some sort of like decision-making machine, that you had all the available facts to you, I think that you're right. Is you should judge it based on that. But I think if you are a human referee with a poor vantage point for being able to see all of the available angles. I think if you keep having situations where you've got to rule one way or the other, I sort of think if you think, well, I've given the last three, and I think that is 50-50, at some point there's one of these has got to go. And I think that I'll probably get slated for that as an opinion, but I think on a sort of balance of probability thing is that you've got to think at one point, they can't all be going one way. Unless you think you're 70% certain on each of them. But I just think how they were all so the Bakayoko offside wasn't offside, and the two penalties. I'm not too sure how could you have been more than 50%. I know that they don't. There's no way of physically actually sort of calculating the maths in your head. But how could you have been more than 50-50 certain that they weren't? Does that make sense? It's not. You must have looked at that and been like, at the very worst, I don't know. You couldn't have looked at that as the ref and been like, no, there's no way that's a penalty, or you weren't looking. Anyway, that's yeah. Paul, pick it up from there.
On the positive side, I thought Mason had a good game. I thought Rose looked quite good,
and I thought Kelly was good.
So yes and no. Yes, he was good in context of, but no in the context of, in the first half especially, he got so much of the ball and just continually passed it to McFadden. He should have been setting a higher tempo, and he didn't. And I thought he didn't give the ball away, but I don't think he actually really hurt Bolton as well. I think he should have been the player who was zipping the balls into players and really making us play quicker and higher up the pitch. And I think in the first half, he had one of those latter season Sammy Clingan games where it's like, I'm going to have a 100% pass completion rate, but none of the passes are anything more than just a 5-yard pass. I felt he could have been driving us forward more. I don't think he was particularly bad. I think there were players who were bad. There were players who didn't have good games. I just don't think he really gave us what we needed in that game.
Laurie, a player that we haven't talked all that much about on, who I would like to hear your opinion on, Wesley Jobolo.
I really liked what I saw, to be honest. Like, I was super suspicious of these, not in a mean way, but of these kind of like random Euro trash that we bring in. I'm like, are they going to be just complete? Are we not even going to know who they are in 2 months' time because they'll be back at like Charleroi on a free? But I thought he was great. He was direct. He was kind of a bit clumsy, made some bad decisions as well, but he's fast. And I mean, it's hard to judge when he's skinning a 19-year-old over and over again, but you can only beat what's in front of you, I suppose. And he did successfully beat what was in front of him a lot. And I think he had the best chance of the game taken off him when Shipley put in that incredible cross, and Godden obviously didn't get a shout and basically nods the ball off Jobolo's head when he was, I say, bound to slot it in, but at another point in the game, he had a header which he managed to head into the floor underneath his own feet, which was one of the most catastrophic headers I've ever seen in my life. It did end up turning into a chance, though, because he just smashes it into the floor, and then I can't remember what happens, but the keeper ends up having to make a save regardless, I think, because it spills to someone else. But yeah, I mean,
it's one of the first times I've ever seen a forward player take a touch before having a shot, but the shot is still a header. It's like he was like, right, if I head this into the ground hard enough, should bounce up at just the right angle for me to head it better. It's really unusual, weren't it? I mean, it was obviously just hit him straight in the face, didn't it? Because he badly judged it. But yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah,
I think because the last proper winger we had was probably Kyle Reid. Correct me if I've forgotten someone. But he seems a kind of different player to that. Kyle Reid was very much like backed himself to be putting in excellent deliveries, but Jobolo seems not as good at putting a cross in, but much more like drive towards goal, smash a kind of wayward shot in, which is good because we don't have enough people who shoot. Oh, sorry, Luke Thomas is obviously the winger as well. But I think, promising signs. He's by no means the finished article or definitely going to tear this division up. But while we wait for Jody to come back, I think he's probably a pretty decent option, although I'm not. Maybe he'd be better off in a 4-4-2, as Paul said, because of the difficulties of 4-3-3. But I don't know whether Robbins is going to go back to a 4-4-2 this season.
I just sort of think, looking at the squad, I don't know whether we're much more geared up for a 4-4-2 now. The question that it would bleed, not that it would bleed, the question that it would pose would be, what do we do with Huula, I suppose. But
yeah, exactly.
Either way.
There's just so many question marks over what the hell we do with Bakayoko. I mean, that as much as we've brought in new players, those two were hit there from last season, and they were both poor. Like, Huula had one of those games where you forgot he was there, and Bakayoko offered nothing. I mean, considering, again, I know Zuma's a big guy, but there was no physical...
He still looked like a child out there, didn't he? Just a very, very big child, yeah.
And it's like there was no physical battering around. There was no... Again, it was like we didn't... I said this to some my colleagues at work. It's like, at the end of the day, go out there and make them win the battle as much as the game of football. You've got to, as I said earlier, you've got to play the situation. The situation is they're a bunch of kids. Go out there and make the game physical as well, because you might as well. You've got that advantage. You know, there's no point like lauding it about we play wonderful football. I saw an interview with Wally Downs, who's at AFC Wimbledon. He goes, people look down on the direct ball, but at times it's the same as anything else. It's a legitimate tactic.
It's a tactic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a way of getting what you want to do, which is basically win the game. There was no harm with trying to physically bully that Bolton team, and we didn't. We didn't try, and that's it feels, for me, it just feels like a completely wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
And I know it's only August, and it's like, but 3 points in August are just as valid as 3 points any other time of the year. For me, it's 2 points dropped unnecessarily against a bunch of kids. As well as those kids played, as hard as they tried, it shouldn't have been a contest. And that will possibly be our easiest game this season, because by the time Bolton come to the Rico, they probably would have sorted themselves out. And they probably would have brought in some players on freeze, but they probably would have started to get some sort of, and I use this term correctly, but have had some adults in the team. And that's you can make the excuses, we can fob this off for what it was. The issue is a lot of players didn't have particularly good games, and they need to get that out. They need to be told that isn't good enough, that drawing that game with Bolton wasn't good enough, that their performances have to be better. And some of them, there are competition for places. There are players to come back, that's fine. But those players, if they want to stay in the team, should be doing better than that. People like Westbrook, Bakayoko, Huula, they need to be performing better. And that's where we're going into tomorrow night's game, which is only a League Cup tie. So again, there'll probably be quite a few changes. We'll probably have quite a few of our under 18s in. And then you've got the game on Saturday where, we've got the opportunity, Bristol Rovers, but they don't concede many. And that's where we've still got this issue is, where do we score the goals? Where do the goals come from? We seem to have that as a perennial issue. Hopefully Gordon is the man to score us 20-odd goals, but that's still only 20 goals. We need 60, 70, 80 to get out of this division. We still need 60 goals from the rest of that side. And that was the disappointing thing on Saturday, is there wasn't enough from those players like Bakayoko and Huula, who have to be scoring around about 10 to 15.
We haven't conceded a single goal yet, though, which is promising. Worth mentioning.
If we keep that up all the way through the season, that'd be 46 clean sheets.
We could win the league with 40 goals. Even 20 would be enough.
Or that we would end up going down on like 47 points. Right, okay then. So let's talk to Dom, then let's take a dip into Paul's post bag. Hi Dom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, it's always good to be on.
Right, Bristol Rovers, what can you tell us?
Well, they've started the season without winning either of their games and without scoring. A large part of that is probably due to Jonathan Clark-Harris, who had a great run of form after signing for them from us last season. He started the season injured, so it's quite a there's a few new signs in there. It's just sort of taking a bit of time to gel. Reasonable performance at the weekend, but they couldn't put it in the back of the net, which is sort of a bit of theme for them last season, which is continuing into this one. They've got Graham Coughlin in charge, who took over as a caretaker last season and is now entering his first season as a full-time manager. So you're never quite sure whether there was someone who came in and had a good short-term impact or whether they're actually someone with the talent to take it forward longer term. So going through the team, Johnson Clark-Harris looks like the biggest threat and came off the bench on Saturday. So I would hazard a guess that he'll be able to start this game, which will be his first start of the season. So yeah, whatever you want to say about former players always scoring against former clubs, or at least being more noticeable when they do. Whether Johnson Clark-Harris is the striker that we didn't quite see for us, I'm still a little bit sceptical of. Quite a few of his goals for Bristol Rovers last season came in the space of about a month, and they're all absolute screamers. So you wonder whether that's actually replicable, or maybe is it an indication of him just stepping up his game a little bit. And if he does that, if you've got someone who can put the ball in from 25 yards out and is strong, can win free kicks like Johnson Clark-Harris does, then it's going to make you a big threat at this level. They've got a couple of interesting other forwards they've signed on loan with sort of young players. They've never really quite done it yet, haven't really had the opportunity to, but they could be quite interesting. Tyler Smith is on loan from Sheffield United, was very prolific in the National League first half of last season with Barrow. Went to Doncaster, couldn't really get in the team. And they've also got Victor Adebayo, who was sort of on the bench a lot for Barnsley last season. Started last season off very well, coming off the bench and scoring a few goals, but didn't quite do enough to get into the team. But Adebayo in particular could be someone who will step up a little bit, someone who can run in behind a little bit more. And there's another one with a very ferocious strike on him. Bristol Rovers midfield, I really like Ed Upson at the base of that midfield. Someone who can dictate things. He's got a bit of presence for him as well, can get up and score if needed. Although they've got in Liam Sercombe, very good box-to-box / attacking midfielder. It's very good striker of the ball, whether that's from set pieces or open play. Then they've got Ollie Clark, who came through their academy, and it's always good for the odd goal coming up from midfield. And then in defence, we've got the guy we had with us last season, Laurie's favourite player, Tom Davis. He's an interesting choice. They went to Bristol Rovers, considering he's replacing Tom Lockyer, who's an academy player for them, came through. He's gone to Charlton this summer. He's a Wales international. It's more of a sort of cerebral sort of ball-playing defender. So Davis coming in, sort of bit of change up there, and you wonder whether maybe he wouldn't quite fit in. Although, given the way Bristol Rovers tended to defend under Coughlin, where it's sort of sitting back quite a bit, putting bodies on the line, then you definitely have Davis in there. Also, in terms of sort of their backline, they've brought in two very attacking fullbacks over the summer in Mark Little and Luke Leahy, who are just very good going forward. Mark Little was part of the Bristol City team a few years ago, where they played 5-3-2, and he was an absolute force down that right flank. Luke Leahy is getting about 5 or 6 assists a season for Walsall over the past 2 years from left back, and he's notably from Coventry, and I think he's a Coventry fan as well. So there's that. And then in goal they have Ansi Yakola, who's a Finnish goalkeeper. He may even be an international, or have gotten the odd game for them. Yeah, he looked decent in the Championship last season when he got a run out for Reading. He's very good shot stopper from the sounds of things, but maybe just lacking the other side of that game. And again, if it's a system where they're going to sit deep, then maybe all you really need is a shot stopper. Although notably on the opening day, he gave away a penalty from basically mistaking an opposition player's head for the ball. And it was just one of the most clear-cut penalties you're ever likely to see. So I think the main thing to look out for with Bristol Rovers is just how good they have been generally defending away from home under Graham Coughlin. Their away record last season was absolutely incredible for a team that struggled. They were 8th in the division for their away record, and they conceded the joint fewest away from home. So it could be another one of those where it's going to be very tough for us to break down the side. And obviously, you'd worry with the threat and the counter that Bristol Rovers are going to pose.
Exceptionally comprehensive as usual. I wondered if you'd got any thoughts on the Bolton game before I let you go.
I think the caveat with anything about it is it was a team of an average age of 19, so there's no excuses for not winning that. Obviously, I think having 2 disallowed goals, which could have been given, changed the game. Certainly the first one, it felt like when that went in, it seemed to deflate them just from the reaction of the Bolton players. And then when it was disallowed, they go up straight the other end and have one of their best chances of the game. And it's sort of one of those moments where, yeah, it was a poor overall performance, but you can't escape that. We did have 2 goals ruled out and did create enough chances to win it. And it's one of those sort of like an FA Cup tie. It was a bit of a strange occasion to come up against a team that's that young. They're playing their first home game of the season, so obviously a bit pepped up for it. But yeah, you just should have won it, and you wonder what impact that might have over the course of the season. And I suppose it's about winning this game against Exeter on Tuesday night, and getting another win on the board on Saturday, and maybe trying to pick up a notable result just to get the season going, because it's just left everyone flat and quite angry.
It's interesting having this conversation before the body of the main pod, which I know doesn't come in chronological order for what you will have been hearing, listener, but I do wonder whether we will have been capable of such balance in the main podcast. I have a feeling that ship might have sailed by the time that people get to this point of the pod, but thank you very much for Dom, and I'll speak to you next week.
All right, speak to you then.
Okay, thanks, Dom. Right, then let's, Paul's post bag. Let's have it. Paul, what have you got for us?
Okay, well, there weren't that many questions because I think everyone's lost the will. From Rendon then, why does a fan base that booed very good championship strikers like Leon Best and Stern John feel the need to make excuses for drawing 0-0 to Bolton's youth team, and this is the worst result in the club's history?
This question.
I must confess, I saw that, and I'm not entirely sure what the two things had got to do with each other.
I think the issue is that our fans seem to be very disappointed by... Our fans are quite odd at times in the fact that almost nothing Lee Burge could do was good enough, yet some people find drawing 0-0 with Bolton's youth team fine. Does that make sense?
Opinions, isn't it? That's
me. It is opinions.
That's me channeling Neil, who's not here this week.
But do you think just some people don't really want to acknowledge the gravity of quite how depressing a result that is? Whereas it's easy to slag off one player because all you need is that player to be dropped, and then you get what you want, and you're happy, problem solved. I think acknowledging that this is like a pretty grim result after what was meant to be an optimistic summer is just quite just seems like structurally quite worrying. So maybe people don't want to admit that.
But it's the same for me. It's exactly the same as the Biami substitution. No, very few people are going, that was a stupid substitution. They're going, well, he did it for this reason, but it's a reason they've concocted in their own head to justify It's an horrendous substitution. That's all it is. Just turn around and go, would you have made that substitution? No, never. Why? Because it's stupid. Don't go, because we're going to play log balls to the diagonals. Because he's not Brian Dean. We don't do that.
But some people think Mark Robins is a saviour, and they're not willing to entertain the idea that someone who's a saviour can also make really big mistakes, because people are either good or bad these days, when it's okay for them to be good and bad at the same time, which Robins is a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It goes back to the thing we always say about League One players. Is they're in League One for a reason. That you've got players who who are really good at certain things, who are shit at other, and that's why they're in League One. The thing is, it's like, can you get better? Do you improve over your time? And McFadden is a prime example. The guy spent most of his career in League Two and League One. That's fine. He's a solid League One, like League Two player. That's it. That's where his career's at. And he's probably going to be good at certain things this season. On Saturday, I thought he had a particularly bad game. I thought he used the ball really badly most of the time in the amount of possession he had. But that's not to say there won't be other games this season where we play someone like Wickham and he's man of the match because we needed that old head who's going to do certain things for us. I think that's just, it is, isn't it? It's like Mark Robins is essentially a League One manager, which means he's good at certain things and he's not so good at other things. Just, he's not going to get everything right. So why pretend that he is? And why then try and justify the things he gets wrong and just blindly follow him when he gets things right? It's just like, there is a balance there. Let's hope that he never makes that substitution ever again.
That leads me very neatly on to my next question for both of you, which is, Mark Robins, good or bad? In just one word, please.
He's good for Coventry.
No, that's a joke. I'm not actually asking you. That's not a real question, is it?
But the thing is, he is good for Coventry, isn't he? His record at Coventry is really good. And you compare it to all the other managers we've had in the last 30 years. He's a good manager.
I asked for one word.
What? Since when have you ever had one word answers? Right. Is Jamie Allen the best? Oh, sorry, this is from Mitchell 1990. Is Jamie Allen the best player never to play for City?
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I replied to the tweet, but I am massively guilty of being at the vanguard of Jamie Allen adulation without ever really having seen him play. I'm already completely convinced that he's going to come into the team and we're going to win every game. And I think more than anything is that even when he has 10 bad games in a row, I'm going to be there saying, I don't think he's really adds a lot. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I must confess, I hadn't seen a great deal of kind of Alan worship online yet, but I do sort of feel like I might have been guilty of it a little bit.
Laurie?
I don't even know where he's come from, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see.
All right.
You're too cool for Jamie Allen, aren't you, Laurie? You're too busy with the Javain Castaniers of this world, aren't you?
Yeah, he doesn't sound European enough to me.
Houchin87, according to Twitter, we're now the worst football side to ever existed. Should we all give up and find something else to do?
I think we were always the worst football side that had ever existed. I don't know whether I thought the Bolton was just the icing on the cake.
I think, as I said, I've said quite a few times on Twitter, I think you take the game into the context of what it was. It was a bad result against a bunch of kids. Does that mean we're not going to get promoted? No. Does it mean we're going to get relegated? No. It just means for that 90 minutes, it was possibly one of the most frustrating 90 minutes of my entire life sporting Cov. But that's what it was. I don't think anyone's making grander statements than that. As much as people are trying to read something into it, it's a case of we have to analyse this game because that's the one we've watched. That's the one we're making comments on. But ultimately, it's not going to decide our future when no one's making sort of sweeping statements. So someone goes, but what about, it's like the time to make an opinion is May. And it's like, okay, we won't talk about anything until May then. You're just being awkward. Well, you're the one saying we don't make opinions on games until May, till the finals, the table's finished. Well, then we won't discuss anything until May when the table, and then we'll go through every game in minuscule and go, well, actually, the context for that game led into this. It's like, well, of course we're going to discuss what's just happened. But no one's sort of slitting their throat. No one's suicidal over it. I think everyone's just fucking annoyed the fact we couldn't beat a bunch of kids. I think that's sensible response, isn't it?
I do wonder whether we would be better served next season doing one 47-hour long podcast instead of 47 1 hour shows. I do sort of think that might allow us to deal with things in more balance, but I also would like to see how we started to do at the 30-hour mark.
Disco Beetle question is drawing 0-0 to a team of literal kids the most Cov thing Cov can do?
Disco Beetle, I remember him from last year. Didn't he had a good question last year? And we spoke mostly about his name, didn't we?
Yeah, I think he just got a good name last year. He might have asked a decent question, but I know that I think Ed seemed very fascinated by his name, but it does seem that his name has rather stolen the attention again.
What was the question?
Drawing 0-0 with a bunch of kids, is that what Cov do?
I mean, yeah.
That is how we roll. We'll probably beat someone bloody excellent pretty soon, and then we'll have a whole different set of problems.
All right, Dan McGragan. Why spend $500,000 on a striker, not start him, then bring a number 9 on and play him on the wing? Curious.
Yeah, I mean,
We've discussed.
Yeah.
With a nod to from Lee, wait like Tenko. With a nod to Ron Atkinson, can Max Biamu or Colton Palmer trap a ball better over 20 yards?
I did think that that this is no disrespect to Max, who we're all very pro Max on this podcast. It was an awful performance when he came on, wasn't it? And I know that a massive amount of that was that it would have been like asking McFadzean to do the same job. It wasn't for him to be playing on the left wing, but us trying to thread balls into him and for him to be dribbling forward a lot and everything. But my word, he was poor, wasn't he? Just the very fundamental stuff, just bad.
Even his excellent finish could be misinterpreted as a first touch.
Kick, yeah, or even just that it kind of skews off at the wrong angle. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt that was a finish as opposed to, yeah.
Or maybe every time he gets the ball, he's just trying to instantly slot it into the bottom corner.
Yeah.
That's what his first touch is.
Yeah.
The final question, which is probably a good one to end the show on, from Daryl Moxon, is you're going to an escape room, and if you get out within the hour, you win £5 and a bag of chips. Which 3 City players do you take in with you?
Now, the question is, are we going to attack this as 3 players each, or are we each going to get to pick a player, given that
3 players each? I think
each, okay.
But basically, I think what we should do is we're all going in at the same time. So Laurie gets to choose his 3 first, so you can't pick the same one someone else has gone with.
Oh, Jesus, okay.
So Laurie, who are your 3 players?
Well, you want to pick people who are really good at getting out of awful situations. So I'd go with Connor Chaplin, Tom Bayliss, and Lee Burge.
Yeah. Go on then, Paul, you can get second bite of the cherry.
I would go for I'd go for McFadzean.
Yeah, I would have gone for McFadzean, yeah.
Too big to even get out of the room, even if the door's open.
I'd go for Mason. And I think I'll go for Bakayoko.
What? Just barrel around there?
I just think Bakayoko. It's like
Smashed his way out.
I think if I'm stuck there, I get the feeling that Bakayoko's the sort of guy who's going to he's just a lovely guy to spend time with. Some of the things I've seen, he just seems like a really nice, sort of happy-go-lucky type guy. And I think he's going to keep my spirits up.
Brilliant. So you're resigning yourself to the fact that you're not getting out already? You've not even tried?
I've assessed the situation and I've decided I want to be happy for my hour in there.
Yeah. You're wasting away in a room that you're dying inside because you haven't tried to open the door. I am going to go for... I feel like Liam Kelly is a very practical guy. Do you know what I mean? That's what's it.
Boy Scout leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he would probably be a good guy. I'm going to pick... You've already taken Bakker. I mean, I would have taken Bakker just because what a guy. I would take Zane Westbrook because I thought he made me laugh on that those sort of player videos that they did in the summer. He seemed daft as a brush. So if you've got Bakker, I can take Zane as kind of light relief. And then I don't know really who else is left.
I reckon maybe if you're stuck in a room with him for an hour, you want to have fun, maybe take Jack Hickman. He'll probably
Yeah.
bring something to the party.
Has anyone seen, by the way, recently, if you Google Coventry, I wonder if it's still there now. I must have had it up open over the summer, and if you just Google Coventry City squad or whatever, there's those pen pictures of the players in the squad that comes up on Google's results page. And the Hickman one, all the rest of them are players in their shirts, but the Hickman one was a screenshot from his own video. Yeah, it feels like, either that
That's the
picture
official
won't be
press
around for
shot
much
now.
longer, or that he won't be around for much longer. I wonder, I'm looking at it now, it may well be that he's gone. Yeah, I think it looks like he's been removed, but it was brilliant, because all the rest of them were just in Cov shirts. But yeah, I'm going to take my third person. I'm going to take Hawula, because I feel like Hawula, Liam Kelly's getting most of it done, but the bits that Kelly would struggle with, I feel like Hawula could probably Kelly would be like, this bit is really difficult, I'm struggling with it, and Hawula hasn't done anything the entire time, but would somehow do the difficult bit.
Miraculously solve the puzzle.
Somehow, yeah.
Just sat there. Who are you doing anything? Give me a minute. Just give me a minute.
Yeah. So that's go on.
Talking about one of my favourite things I've seen today was someone on Twitter, a Sunderland fan, going, "Oh, will Jordan Willis ever pass to a red and white shirt?"
Incredible. It begins.
Oh, the mysteries. I think
it is going to be funny if they come back and they're like, "I thought we'd signed this world-class centre-back." We'd be like, "That's what." Yeah, that's
sign what you signed.
Yeah. Go on, Paul. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, that's me. That's me done. I bolted out, I think.
I think that's all of us, isn't it? Laurie, anything to add before we wrap up?
No, just fair play to their keeper. What a performance.
Yeah, and their left back, I thought was very, very good. Really stood out as being very composed and quality. Okay, right. So we'll be back again next week, I expect, to talk about Exeter and Bristol City. Is that who we've got in the League Cup? Is it Exeter?
Exeter and Bristol Rovers.
Exeter and Bristol Rovers. There we go. Right, Paul. Thank you. It's good for you to be back.
Cheers, mate.
That made it sound like it's good for you to be back. Like it is. This must be lovely for you to be. Is that what I meant?
I mean, some of the comments from some of our listeners, I don't think they're happy about that. But thanks, mate.
And Laurie, likewise.
Cheers, mate.
Another brand new lineup next week. No, probably not. Bye.